What if I told you that everything we believe about the modern royal family was built by someone the palace spent nearly 30 years trying to forget? Stick around because what's about to happen at Buckingham Palace is going to shake the very foundations of how we understand the British monarchy. And trust me, this story gets wild. If you love history, drama, and those jaw-dropping moments that change everything, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button right now because this gets absolutely insane. Let's dive in. For almost 3 decades, something extraordinary has been quietly hidden behind the stone walls of Buckingham Palace. The palace kept silence about a woman who fundamentally rewrote what it means to be royal. But here's the plot twist nobody expected. King Charles is about to break that silence in a way that's going to redefine everything we thought we knew about his reign. This isn't some routine anniversary message that gets passed to the media without anyone really caring. No, this is completely different. Palace insiders describe what's coming as groundbreaking, as a moment when Charles will speak directly, in his own words, about the one person who built the monarchy he now leads. The shock that's rippling through royal circles right now is real, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this moment is so monumentally important. Let me set the scene for you, because understanding this requires going back to a day that changed everything. Picture this, July 29, 1981. Nearly 750 million people across the entire globe are watching as a 19-year-old kindergarten teacher walks into St. Paul's Cathedral to marry the man who's in line to run the entire British Empire. This wedding ceremony becomes one of the most watched moments in human history. The whole world is glued to their screens. Everyone's talking about the dress, the fairy tale, the grandeur of it all. But there's one tiny detail that hardly anyone catches at the moment, yet it's actually the most significant part of the entire ceremony. At the altar, this young woman does something nobody expected her to do. She breaks nearly 300 years of royal tradition by removing one specific word from her wedding vows. That word? Obey. She refuses to promise to obey her husband. Can you imagine? The headlines exploded. People couldn't believe what they just witnessed. But this wasn't some act of rebellion or defiance. This was a signal, a message being sent out to the entire establishment that she was going to write her own story, on her own terms, in her own way. Here's where it gets interesting, because most royals before her spent their entire lives following an ancient rulebook. They appeared on balconies, they waved at crowds, they maintained this distance that kept them separate, untouchable, almost superhuman in their perfection. But this woman, Diana, she had something different running through her veins. She had warmth as strategy. Almost overnight, something shifted in the air. The public didn't just want to see royals anymore. They wanted to actually feel them. They wanted human connection, not just ceremony. They wanted someone who understood what it meant to be normal, to struggle, to care. Diana instinctively understood this in a way that puzzled the palace advisors around her. She started treating royal duty like it was something deeply personal, something that actually mattered on a human level, rather than just another ceremonial obligation to check off a list. What she did next completely transformed the British monarchy in ways we're still discovering today. She sat on hospital beds and actually talked to patients like they were people she cared about, not just subjects to inspect. She would crouch down to a child's height so she could look them in the eye and speak to them as equals. She looked at people like she genuinely saw them, really understood them. In April of 1987, something happened that would echo through the decades. Diana walked into the Middlesex Hospital in London to officially open the country's very first dedicated unit for patients suffering from AIDS. Remember, this was the 1980s. The fear surrounding this virus was absolutely enormous. People thought you could catch it from sharing a glass of water, from sitting next to someone, from shaking their hand. The panic was real. Health officials didn't even want royals going near these patients. But Diana, she walked up to a man who was dying from this disease, and without hesitation, without gloves, without any protection, she reached out and held his hand. That single moment, that gesture that lasted just a few seconds, did more to change how Britain viewed this disease than years of government campaigns and public information films combined. It completely transformed the conversation overnight. Think about what that actually meant in the real world. Just 2 years later, in 1989, Diana visited a hospital in Indonesia where patients with leprosy were being treated. Leprosy, a disease that had carried centuries of stigma and fear and shame. And what did she do? She sat among those patients and she touched them with her bare hands. No protection, no distance, just human connection. She became the patron of Centrepoint, an organization dedicated to helping homeless young people living on the streets of London. But she didn't just lend her name to it from a distance. She brought her own children there, so they would understand what duty actually meant in practice. She wanted them to see suffering up close, so they could develop empathy and understand that royalty came with responsibility to help others. Palace advisors at the time were actually pretty worried about these visits. They thought these appearances were too raw, too emotionally intense, too unlike anything the royal family had ever done before. That discomfort they felt. That was exactly the point. Diana had figured something out that the institution hadn't fully accepted yet. A monarchy that only appeared on balconies, that kept its distance, that maintained perfect, untouchable perfection. That monarchy would slowly lose connection with the people it supposedly served. But a monarchy willing to show up at bedsides, willing to be present in the messy reality of people's lives, that monarchy might actually keep the country. Fast forward 10 years, January 1997. Diana walks into a partially cleared minefield in Angola, wearing protective gear, a visor, body armor, moving slowly through dangerous territory to force the entire world to look at the victims of landmine explosions. A tragedy that the international community was ignoring. By the time of her death that August, she had become the patron or president of over 100 different charities. More than 100. Let that sink in. By the time she was gone, she had fundamentally altered what it meant to be a member of the royal family. She had expanded the job description so dramatically that nobody could go back to the old way. Royal historian Ingrid Seward actually described this period as the moment when the entire monarchy's social role shifted from being a distant, cold symbol to becoming an active, engaged participant in the life of the nation. The template she created didn't die with her. It lived on. Now jump to 2026, where we are right now. According to multiple sources close to the palace's planning, King Charles is preparing to make something explicit that's been implicit for 3 decades. He's going to directly acknowledge how Diana's innovations from the late 1980s through 1997 became the actual foundation of his entire approach to being king. The informal dress codes, the conversations happening at eye level instead of down from on high, the culture of handshakes and human connection that replaced stiff formality and distance, all of it came from her. All of it is still foundational to how the monarchy operates today. Now, the palace is being very careful about how they frame this. They're positioning it as continuity rather than correction. The king isn't going to criticize how the establishment once resisted his former wife's innovations. He's going to acknowledge, plain and simple, that the reforms now credited to him actually started with her. But here's where it gets really deep, because the tribute goes even further than just acknowledging the past. Sources indicate Charles will directly connect Diana's 1987 decision to touch an AIDS patient to how the entire royal family engages with the public right now in 2026. That same philosophical shift, that willingness to be physically and emotionally present with people who are suffering rather than remaining symbolically above it all, that's the exact logic that Prince William now applies to his mental health initiatives. In 2016, William launched Heads Together alongside Catherine to move mental health from the shadows and margins into the absolute center of royal work. He started speaking candidly about his own grief, about his experience losing his mother at 15, about therapy and psychological struggle. When he talks openly about these deeply human things, he's not inventing some brand new royal language. He's actually continuing a language his mother wrote first. She opened that door, and he's walking through it and expanding it. What was once seen as Diana breaking the rules has become the rulebook itself, the establishment template. Here's the detail that royal watchers find absolutely striking. Some insiders have revealed that this entire tribute, this shift in how the palace frames Diana's legacy, it wasn't even the king's own idea originally. Prince William, the future king, he quietly curated much of this entire thing. He wove together his father's stewardship of the crown with his mother's original humanitarian vision. In doing so, William has positioned Diana not as some tragic footnote to Charles's story, not as a tragic princess frozen in 1997, but as a philosophical co-architect of the very monarchy that his family runs today. That is absolutely remarkable. Think about what that means. A future king is deliberately choosing to rewrite history, to reframe who gets the credit, to elevate his mother's role from supporting character to fundamental architect. That's a bold move, and it carries real risk. By raising Diana to the level of co-architect, the family invites every comparison back into public conversation: the affection she commanded, the crowds she drew, the way she could make the entire institution look formal and disconnected simply by being herself. There's real complexity here that shouldn't be smoothed over or simplified. Because here's the thing that nobody wants to talk about, but everyone knows. The marriage at the center of this entire tribute was unhappy. Both Charles and Diana admitted this openly. They separated in 1992. They divorced in 1996. For a reigning king to now publicly honor and celebrate the legacy of a partnership that fell apart is not some simple, sentimental act. It's a delicate negotiation with his own history, performed on a stage where an entire nation watched everything unravel in real time. For Charles, this moment is deeply personal in ways the public rarely gets to see. Whatever went wrong between them, he was there during those years when Diana was learning to revolutionize what royalty could be. He watched the nation fall in love with the very qualities that, tragically, their own marriage couldn't hold together. He understands that complexity more than anyone. That's what makes William's role so incredibly significant and telling. William is the one person, the only person really, who can stand between his father's crown and his mother's memory, without either one canceling out the other. He grew up living both stories simultaneously. He remembers the mother who took him and his brother to homeless shelters and hospital wards, teaching him that duty meant proximity, not distance, teaching him that being royal meant actually being present. And now he serves the institution she both loved and struggled against. When William helps his father credit Diana properly, when he orchestrates this acknowledgement, he's doing something no press office could ever script. He's reconciling his family's narrative in public, on behalf of a nation that has never fully let this story rest. Royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams has observed that William understands something crucial that few people grasp. Diana's legacy and the crown's future aren't actually separate questions anymore. They've quietly become the same question. The future of the monarchy can't be understood without understanding Diana's impact. What this moment genuinely reveals is profound. The monarchy has stopped treating Diana as a wound that needs to be managed and started treating her as an actual architecture that deserves to be acknowledged and celebrated. Now, whether that changes anything permanent is another question entirely. Every single year brings another anniversary, another tribute, another carefully chosen sentence about a woman who has been gone for nearly 3 decades now. The real question that hangs over everything is whether these commemorations and recognitions slowly resolve the tension between Diana's legacy and Charles's authority, whether they fold one into the other until the seam completely disappears and becomes invisible, or whether they simply keep restaging that same tension over and over on a loop, a family and an institution returning again and again to the same unfinished conversation about who they were, who she was, and what the marriage that began in 1981 was truly meant to be for. This story matters because it's not really about the royal family at all. It's about legacy. It's about how institutions change through individuals who refuse to follow the rulebook. It's about the long game of influence and how the work we do continues long after we're gone. Diana didn't just change the monarchy because she was charming or beautiful. She changed it because she fundamentally understood that duty without humanity is empty. That connection is the most powerful tool any leader can wield. That vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. These lessons are still resonating through the royal family today, shaping how they engage with the public, shaping what the next generation of leaders believes royalty should be. If this kind of history fascinates you, if you love these deep dives into how power works and how change actually happens in the world's most influential institutions, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now, because we're going to be exploring more stories like this. Stories about the people and the moments that actually shaped our world. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think about this. Do you think Diana's influence on the modern monarchy is being properly acknowledged? What do you think her legacy will ultimately be? I want to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.